Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, showcasing the incredible women's hockey players from around the world through compelling interviews and discussions alongside your host, Chris Sinclair.
Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today, I'm joined by Amanda Pelkey, a veteran forward with PWHL Boston. Welcome to the show, Amanda. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Ready to dive in, answer some questions.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Because this is the first time you've been on the show. I think it's great. It's a great launching point for us to look back at how everything started for you. So what was it about hockey, about the sport, about lacing up those skates that like kind of drew you in and made you so excited about the sport of hockey?
Well, I think everyone has not everyone, but I think a lot of us have a very similar story with this sport and how it started. For me, it started outdoors, which I'm very grateful for because, as you know, we're no longer maybe not getting those winters that we used to, and those are some of my special moments. But my dad, hockey's in the family. My older brother played as well, and my dad built a rink outside, took up every inch of our front yard. So I'm sure my mom is still having conversations with him about it. I'm just kidding. She loved it. But I think, since I was 2 or 3, I was hooked. And for me, the biggest part, and still up to this point, it never felt like I was ever told to do anything, or it was just simply enjoyment. And I couldn't have any more hours on that ice. They had to always call me in at night, even after hockey practice, after school. It was just constant. So I fell in love with it pretty quick.
Do you still feel, maybe this is a silly question, but do you still feel that same, maybe we could call it a spark that you felt early on in your career, even as you've gone throughout this incredible career that you've had? Do you still, in this moment, when you think about like right now for Pelkey, like, do you still feel that same spark that you did when 2 or 3 years old you laced up the skates for the first time?
Well, I mean, that's just pure excitement because it's new, and but throughout my career, I feel like there's been a lot of new opportunities, a lot of new leagues, and a lot of new teams, a lot of new teammates. So I think I do find that spark and that excitement in different categories within my career. But nothing is like that the first time. A lot of different first time experiences have that spark, and I think that I find my spark in different areas of my career now.
Okay, and we're going to get into those different areas of your career, and I'm so excited to get into those. But I want to kind of keep with the family perspective. As you've mentioned, obviously family, whether they were all in or maybe a little bit more reluctant early on, as your mom likely was. But do you could you maybe just share a little bit about what it meant to have that family support, like early on, and that like it sounds as though everyone was all in. They saw this passion, they saw this excitement for you, or from you rather. What did that mean to you early on, especially?
Yeah, well, right now that kind of puts off a light bulb in my head because you watch the Olympics right now, whether it's summer or winter. I know it's toward the end of it, but some of my favorite moments as a spectator of watching is seeing the family's emotion with it as well. And I think everyone can attest to, a testament to that watching the Olympics, there's always a story behind athletes. And for me, that's the coolest part about watching the Olympics. Obviously, being there was a whole other level in itself, but being a fan and watching it, I think that the family aspect of who we are is the reason why we're in those moments and why we're grateful enough that we can even compete at that level. For me, the support went above and beyond just my family. The community that I grew up in, still growing up in, is always and will always be supportive of my endeavors, whether it's playing, or they're always interested and they always want to keep hearing my story. And I take a huge pride in that, connecting with my community. And without community, without family, it's really, really hard to get to the next level. And even reaching those heights of, the highest level that we could possibly reach within our sport, I still feel that support, moving forward. Even though that goal was already achieved, that the support just continues to flow in, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, and I think, we're going to kind of go a little bit forward to, stick with the same topic as well, though. But obviously, as you've mentioned, there have been a number of different leagues. There have been leagues that have shown success but have ultimately folded. Obviously, now with the PWHL, what does it mean to have family there for you during those periods of time when there was that uncertainty as to what your career, you invested so much into your career to see these ups and downs.
Yeah.
I do, I always like to highlight family because I think, as you've mentioned, like it's the athlete is at the forefront, of course, but there's such a support system there in behind. What did it mean to you to have that support system in place when maybe you were riding a high and then you hit that low? What did that mean to you?
Yeah. It's a great question. I like how you worded it too, because I feel like at times when we need them the most is the uncertainty. I like that word that you use, because it's not failure, it's just the uncertain, of what comes next. And that, quite honestly, since I graduated college in 2015 up until this year, it almost feels like every year there's uncertainty, unfortunately. Just how like the career has laid itself out and throughout all the leagues. And I think what my family helped me with was not, I know what my family helped me with was kind of brought me back down to like ground zero, that things will pan itself out. And patience was the biggest word, that myself and a lot of my other peers and teammates and opponents have had to have for the last decade. And I think one of the coolest parts is trusting that patience and allowing things to just play out and not hope for the best, but that's, sometimes we had to do that. And to see what this past year was like, was pretty awesome. But that doesn't come to be without the trust, without the patience, and all the work that everyone has put in, from the teammates to the staff of previous leagues, owners of previous leagues. Without that, we wouldn't have the trust that something else bigger and, hopefully better was going to come along. So I think that the support system just helps bring you back in and really tell you to be patient with the process.
So would you say it's safe to assume that the foundation that your family built with you and the perspectives and the support that they provided you helped you to trust, again, to sort of trust the process? Like this process, especially for women's hockey, has been, I don't want to say unorthodox, but it's definitely been, the journey to get to where we are, and where we are is only a starting point, but where we are is definitely miles above where we were, but there's still a lot of uncertainty, right? Do you think, again, the perspectives that were instilled in you from your family has helped you to feel more comfortable with, navigating, like, hey, this was a great first year, but this is only the first year, and I want to kind of manage those expectations. Do you think that's fair to say?
Completely fair to say. And I think that came along with a lot of open conversations and open and honest conversations of, here we go again. What does the next year look like? And I think it all does come back to the spark emotion, because I will always say, if choosing to play, you have to have that spark. It's like if you don't have it, it's kind of like cheating yourself. And I never want to get to that point, and I never want to get to that feeling, because I've loved this sport since day one. So
Yeah.
it's and that's like that's the interesting topic too, because it does involve all your family and your friends, and the spark might be there still for them, but it if it doesn't reflect on you, and you don't get that emotion, then it's hard to be patient, it's hard to be trusting. And so that was a great question.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Hopefully there's more to come. So speaking of those individuals throughout your career that have been really influential for you, you had a trainer by the name of Chris Pickle. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. He was a trainer who worked with you early on in your hockey career. Could you talk about the impact? Again, when we're talking about the impact of these individuals throughout your career, it I always say it's like it takes a village, right? Like it's
Hmm.
family, it's friends, it's professors, it's teachers, it's mentors, it's the previous generation. But there are also a lot of those unnamed individuals who are often on the training staff. So it's video coaches, it's all of these other individuals, right? What kind of impact did he have on you?
Well, he was my first time that I, like you said, did a personal training session. I believe I was 13, 14. And I think that when the dream and the drive to make it to the Olympics and college and so on and so forth, when that was crystal clear, and wanting, the drive for that to happen, that was definitely the next step into learning what it meant to show up to a gym, train, the emotions, the feelings you get, the soreness you get. And I still remember how sore I was, even because if it's your first time training, and I couldn't, I went to a hockey tournament that weekend, and I couldn't, my arms were locked. Like I couldn't completely straighten them out, which was like, you still remember those feelings and emotions towards it. And I remember thinking, is this how it's going to be every time? Because that's tough. But obviously it wasn't like that every time. But that I do remember that starting point. And I remember him on a daily basis, or every time that I saw him, he always brought up the Olympics. And not in like a in your face type of way, but it was just like kind of in my ear a little bit. So anytime we were training, we kind of had fun with it. Do you think he would be like, do you think that the person on the current Olympic team right now is performing at that pace or something? He would just
Mhm.
always like bring it up, and it was always a part of the conversation, but never in a pressure way. It was just like in a fun, exciting way. So it just kept me always thinking about it in a healthy way, and wanting it that much more. And again, that's a young kid, like 13, 14, getting in the gym and realizing that it's going to take a lot of effort. And I think he was one of the first trainers that put that bug in my ear every time.
I
So
love that.
it was
Again,
fun.
like I said, it's one of those things where, people just assume it's like, you know what, it's grit from the player. It's grit from the player. It's just like there's something innate in an athlete, and there is for sure. But there's also the support structures in there, right? Where it's, you have all of these people who are, especially now, not, like you said, not just here to like push you. I mean, they're here to challenge you for sure, but they're really here
Hmm.
to connect with you and understand what you need most to be the most successful. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that is, I always love these kinds of stories because they're not the stories that a lot of people hear about. Is, not to take away from obviously the incredible success that you've had, but there's
Hmm.
also this, like I've said, this support structure in place for you. So it's
Yeah.
incredible to hear about those things. And as we look, kind of slowly progressing through your career, you signed with the Boston Pride, and then afterwards you had maybe taken, I don't want to say unorthodox, but again, that's the second time I've used that word in this conversation, but maybe like the more uncommon or unconventional approach by you actually just straight up quit your job so you could focus full time on hockey. What went into that? What went into that decision?
Well, when I graduated from college, I was told by a very worldwide known strength coach, Mike Boyle, that, and at the time he was our national team strength coach for many years. And I remember having a conversation with him, or indirectly through him, and he said, look, you graduate college and then it's fair game. There's no age limit of making an Olympic team. You are going against the best of the best, regardless of age. There's no, you're done with U18s. You're basically the only national team to make was women's national team. So that was obviously on my radar and my goal. And he had just flat out said to me, he's like, you want to be on the best team, you have to train with the best. So I highly encourage you to move down here to Boston and start training here. And I didn't even blink my eyes twice. And I moved down to Boston I think the day after graduation. And it was the best decision I've ever made. I think I was in the best shape of my life, mentally, physically. I was surrounded by the best leaders in the world that were on the current national team. So yeah, I had to make ends meet and pay for my rent. And I think a lot of people, it's a fun story that I think a lot of us have crossed these roads in our careers, is that you just have to make whatever work just to be able to pay your rent. And at the time I was coaching, because that seems to be a combination that we all do. But with that, like, you're traveling just as much as when we were playing. So it just became a little too much. So then I was cleaning houses, I was doing food prep in kitchens, kind of like a lot of fun stuff, to be honest. And I never felt stressed out about it because I was still able to go and train with the best every single day. So nothing else felt like a burden. But when I did choose to leave the coaching job, it did free up a lot of time to refocus on what I moved down here to do.
So what do you think, like, you kind of alluded to it there, which is, that was great. And I think, that isn't obviously an easy step for anyone to take, whatever job, whatever you're doing in your life. It's not easy to say, you know what, I'm just going to make everything, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work. What do you think, or how do you think that time and, both on and off the ice, how do you think that time helped to shape your career, especially early on, but even right now, as you're a veteran in the league, a lot of people look to you, a lot of either current players or the next generation of incredible athletes are looking to you. How do you think that shaped you as a person?
Well, I think two things come to mind, and it's the mentality of I'm pretty optimistic in this way, where I do think things are gonna fall into place, obviously putting in the work to try and make it happen. But I do think, the optimism of things are always going to work themselves out. And it goes back to that trust and that patience. But the biggest thing for me was, and I always preach to the choir about this, when I tell my story to either younger kids or girls at my camps, that the biggest, not reason for my success, but helpers for my success were the people that I was surrounded by. It's like, you want to be one of the best, you have to be surrounded by the best. And not only like their work ethic, but how they talk to people, how they introduce themselves, how they carry themselves out every single day, their habits away from the rink, away from the gym. And I'm biased, but I think I was surrounded by some of the best athletes in the world, like to this day, who might be retired and, I think could still be playing in this league because they're they're wild, but I attestament a lot of my success by just being around those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about who you surround yourself with, and I love that answer.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned your camps, and I wanted to talk a bit about those hockey development camps where you do a ton of really, really cool things. Things
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not just what you would expect from a hockey camp, right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to do a bunch of drills. Like for you, that's
Mm-hmm.
not what this is about. And I think you've alluded to it a number of times where it's, yes, being great on the ice is important, but what you do before you get on the ice is just as important, if not for a lot of people, even more important. And some of the things you do, like there's mindset seminars, there's team building exercises. And I think the other thing that's really important too, especially early on, is understanding nutrition, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
those things that fuel either your body, your mind, or your soul are really important to the success that you're having on the ice. So
Yep.
how did that development camp, let's start with, how did that all come together?
Well, it's kind of like I feel like the idea of it started when I was really young. For some reason, I love organizing. I love one of my favorite stores is Staples. I love just like the idea of putting something together that I'm really passionate about and I absolutely love. And my time with the national team, we were very grateful that we had a sports psychologist at the time who taught us a lot of these things that I do at the camp. Putting like my own spin on things, but I should honestly reach out to her because she helped shape a lot of our minds leading up to the Olympics. And anytime that we had seminars with her, I was just like glued. I was glued to the screen with everything that she had to say. And at that time, a lot of us were journaling and taking a lot of notes, which I love to do. And I remember I've always had this idea of a hockey camp or some sort of, I mean, you can call it a business or some sort of like development model. And because I took all those notes and I journaled pretty much my whole national team career, that's what I went back to for inspiration and motivation to building an all around athletic camp. Like, yes, hockey's a part of it. It's probably 30% of the camp, 35% of the camp. And the rest of the camp, all the off ice stuff that I do is I built a community of people that do the nutrition. It's a community of someone that I used to play with in college that is a highly known nutritional expert. I've gotten some amazing leadership people come in and talk and do breathing exercises and ice baths and Wim Hof breathing and just like kind of outside the box type of stuff that I get most excited about. And it's just an accumulation over the years of ideas and quite honestly connections with the people that I was just talking about prior, and keeping those people within your community and hopefully building out something that these families and these girls and these players, boys and girls, love to come and spend some time and with me and my coaches. And then when they leave, they're excited. They're already excited for next year. And that's where I feel really happy. And I'm already thinking of next summer already. So
Well, and
it's been good.
let's talk about that. Obviously, there's the impact that this, the growth of women's hockey, especially this past season with the PWHL, is well established. But for you specifically, with
Hmm.
this development camp, with, as you said, so excited already for next season or next year, love that passion. What does it mean
Hmm.
to you to be able to give back to that next generation?
Well, yeah, it seems as though that's always a question asked. And I think the biggest thing is that these kids remember how we make them feel. I remember a feeling that I got being around the 2002 and 1999, 98 Olympic team. And you might not exactly remember the exact moments, but the feelings and the emotions is what drives that inspiration. And I know when I interact or any of my teammates interact with these younger girls, or quite honestly, even girls that might only be 2 years younger than us or whatever it is, those interactions matter so much. And they are the future of our sport. And they are going to be the ones that are going to continue to push this forward. So we need to make them feel that inspiration. And it's not just like an interaction that's like surface, like really dig deep to connect with these young athletes, and they're the future, so it's important.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their diets and health so they can perform their best both on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is available now. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's melissabuffunos.com/course, and make sure to use code Rinkside to save $50 off the regular price. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show. You know, you have had an opportunity to represent your country with Team USA, and through that experience, those experiences, you and those, that goes, like, the obvious is on the ice, but there's definitely a lot of stuff that happens off the ice, as you've mentioned, new connections, new relationships, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
When you think back on those experiences that you've had being able to represent the US, how do you think that's helped you, those experiences, both on and off the ice, have helped throughout your career, especially when you think about this past season with the PWHL and just like how, like, it was so new. There were so many variables. There were so many things that were being figured out as you kind of progressed. What were those experiences like, and how did you translate them to such an incredible career?
Well, I think in terms of experience, I think that the national team process and making those teams still shapes how I think, even just as a person, obviously as an athlete, but never were any of those rosters that I made like a gimme, like myself and among others, like really every time had to fight for those spots. And I, found myself last season having to do that as well. And my mindset goes right back to those times where I never felt it was like difficult in a sense, because I was driven by it. Like I was almost driven by that challenge. And I do think that last year that helped me tremendously with my headspace and really going for it, and obviously experiencing the world and different cultures. The national team had given me so many of those opportunities, and being open to a lot of things, having a beginner's mindset. It's still the way in which I think today is kind of like that national team mindset. And I'm sure a lot of us would say that as well, whether it's good or bad, but it has shaped me, and it's still shaping my mindset and how I think every day. So.
I absolutely love that answer, because I think when you love something so passionately, you are always a student of whatever that may be, right? So you're
Mhm.
always trying to learn and connect and understand and all those sorts of things. And that sounds exactly as how you're approaching, even, given your incredible career, you're still just as enthusiastic, right?
Mhm.
Think back to that young Amanda Pelkey who's lacing up the skates for the very first time, right? So it's really cool.
Yep.
Um, when we talk about relationships within the world of hockey, um, there are a number that stand out to me when it comes to you, but one we have to talk about Danielle Marmer.
Mhm.
And she's the GM in Boston. You played for Boston. It's such an
Mhm.
incredible relationship, and what's really interesting and something that people and I don't want to. This is one of my 20 questions for you later on, so you can't take this as
Yep.
an answer. But one of the things that people may not realize is just how much she actually considers you one of the players that she looked up to throughout her own career. So,
Mhm.
when we talk about the PWHL, what did it mean for you to sign with Boston and to be able to, have a GM like Marmer, where, like, again, your relationship is as incredible as it is. What did that mean to you?
Mhm. Well, it's kind of like a fun full circle
Mm,
moment. I think when we not reconnected, but when I like realized that she was staying involved in hockey after she had graduated from college and seeing her get involved with the Boston Bruins, like I remember reaching out to her and just I was really excited for her because I'm like, heck yeah, like Vermont's a small community. And I think I remember telling her like you're making Vermont proud. Like this is
mm,
cool. This is like headline stuff. So reconnecting her in that way, and then obviously this brought us, even more connected this past year, and just congratulating her again on becoming a general manager. I mean, for her and for the state of Vermont, it's like that's a historic moment, and I think that we need to continue to celebrate each other and support each other. And yeah, I think she saw my dad at the rink a couple times this past year, and it just feels like that same, like, again, people remember how you feel and the emotions, and when you grow up in a small state like we did, I think those connections are going to continue to grow, and hopefully even the younger girls at my camps, maybe they're going to be a general manager someday. Like I hope that she knows how special that is. um and so it was pretty cool to have it come full circle this
And
year.
I always love when someone shares such an impactful story and they have a giant smile and a smile on their face the entire time, as you just did. So obviously, that relationship is really incredible, and um, you know it's a good segue into just talking about this past season, right? This is the inaugural season. And I know for sure you've been asked some of these questions 1,000 times, so
It's
forgive me.
okay.
But I just kind of wanted to get your perspective on when you when you hit the ice, when you go onto the ice, and you
Mhm.
look up in those stands, and you see sellout after sellout,
Yeah.
incredible signs, so much passion. You're seeing,
Mhm.
all these young, girls, young boys, just so enthusiastic about what they're seeing on the ice. What did that mean
Mhm.
to you?
Well, it actually just brought me to a couple moments. I specifically remember our Detroit game when we played at,
Mm,
I think, were we playing Ottawa? I can't remember. I don't have a good memory in that sense, but I remember the atmosphere and playing at that rink. And there's been a chunk of us that have been fortunate enough to play in large crowds to that degree. But that's international stage. And the fact that, like, the professional stage took that leap this year was like the emotion that I felt when I came out on Detroit's ice. And I remember like skating around and warm up, and I'm like looking to other girls on our team that are from Detroit. Like we were just like, this is crazy. This is like actually like I don't want to say we made it, you don't want to jinx it because you have to sustain that. But it was like just for that moment, we just like were like, wow. You have to soak it in because it does go quickly. And then obviously everyone singing to Taylor Swift was pretty cool. I was out there and I'm like, do we stop playing? Like, did the whistle go? Like, we had no idea. Those moments are special, and it is pretty crazy that I was a part of the first ever year, for hopefully many more years to come.
There will be many years. I actually got chills, literal chills, as you were sharing that story. So, you know,
it was cool.
I can't. I wish I could have experienced it, like, on the ice, and especially the journey that you've had to go through as one of the individuals who's been around for a bit longer, to see the growth of women's hockey to be at this point is it just must, like you said, we can't jinx it, so like, let's not do that, but it must just feel, I mean, what word could you use to describe how it must feel in this moment where you're sitting here saying like, hey, like, let's not, again, we're not jinxing it, but it just feels really awesome. Maybe that it seems like such a lame word to use. There's got to be a better one.
I don't think there's just one word yet. I don't think.
Okay.
Monumental.
Yeah, that might be one.
Could be one.
Yeah.
That could be a tester.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And the cool part is like, if you ask that same question to everybody within the league, they're going to have those same emotions and those similar moments, probably different moments, but we've all felt it. And it's pretty cool that we all felt it together. There's never going to be another first year ever. Right. So that's cool.
Oh man, I just got chills
again. It's monumental. Yeah,
monumental. We're going to test run that one. So, as we talked about, when it comes to Boston, you signed as a free agent. So I just kind of wanted to know what it was like for you to go through that free agency process, and then to ultimately, choose to, ultimately go to Boston. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. Like I said before, similar to like national team emotions again, and really pushing to be all in and knowing, hey, you got to be at your best to even be a part of this. And I went full go with it, and I embraced the challenge. And I think like being at camp and being at the group, or being with the group that we had in Boston in particular, I don't think I ever had any emotions of like, nerves is kind of like so surface, but maybe like doubt going to the rink, and because it just it was enjoyable from the start. And I think the environment in which Boston was starting with at the beginning was something that I'm like, okay, it would be really fun to be a part of this. And when something's fun and you're enjoying it, especially at the beginning when there's no guarantee that you're even going to get a contract, that's when I think me as an athlete, that's when I'm going to perform at my best. And it was similar to national team stuff. Like I just really like being around those types of people, and it was enjoyable. And that, I think, alleviated the stress or the nerves to perform. It just became kind of like a free-flowing state for me. And I think that's when I perform at my best. So those were the emotions going into camp.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you continue to bring up all of the experiences that you've had. And I think that's a great point to make, where you may have an opportunity to represent your country. You may have an opportunity to play in this league, but it's about a
Hmm.
culmination of all of those experiences really that
Hmm.
help you to navigate whatever that next step is.
Yeah,
But
regardless of stage or level, or it's just being challenged in general,
yeah,
whether it's sport related or, career related or relationship related, just having any sort of challenge is what I think gets us to where we want to go.
exactly. And I think that's really
Yep.
great, especially for people like myself who have never played the game of hockey or a sport at any serious level.
Hmm.
Those are lessons that you can apply even just to life, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's something that really stood out to me, was that a lot of these experiences for you have been obviously impactful on the ice. But again, like I said earlier, it's not just about what you do on the ice, it's what you do off the ice. And
Hmm.
that mindset that you have, challenging yourself, those relationships that you have really do have an impact on you both on and off the ice. So
Yep.
it's always great to hear those sorts of things. And I think, you know, speaking of, we've talked a little bit about those ups and downs and the challenges and, what it means to, have that really good mindset as, Boston, speaking of Boston, had their ups and downs this season. The team had their ups and downs.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you were able to still, just in spite of those challenges and those ups and downs, you were still able to make the playoffs and go on an incredible run. What
Hmm.
kind of impact do you think going through those ups and downs had on you along with your teammates as you were going through and playing best on best, for the
Hmm.
first time in especially over such a long season like this was?
That's a really good question, or like a tough question to pinpoint one, not one thing, but even just a handful of things. Again, I always try to go back to emotions or what was I feeling in those moments. And I think when we, and maybe we didn't come out and say this, but I think like the difference in the room of like you started to get this notion that like, oh, she like believes in my capabilities as a player.
Mm, mm,
And I think, and I don't know if it was just like one black and white day when that happened, but it almost just felt like maybe a period of like maybe a week or so where you get this taste of success and then it's like, well, why did that happen? It's like, oh, it's because, that teammate trusted me in this scenario. And over time, when everyone in the room like truthfully feels that way about one another,
mm.
that's where the success comes from. If you have, whether it's not a bad egg, but if you have someone that's not on board with that type of mentality, um, at least in front of people, right? That's when I think the continued failure is just going to keep happening,
Hundred-
regardless of who's on your roster and how highly skilled everybody is. And I think that it hit a point where everyone was trusting each other and everyone's capabilities, and again, purely enjoying what we were doing and enjoying that we got to come from potentially the bottom here. Okay, well, let's do it. And I think that everyone seemed as though they were very much on board with trying to accomplish that. And it's just a feeling that you get when it's a true feeling as opposed to fake effort.
Oh, that's got to feel so good though. That's like
Yeah,
the
it's no,
result.
it's a good feeling.
Yeah, the results are great, obviously, but at the end of the day, like, this is about building something sustainable, right? And to have that
Hmm.
belief in one another, that goes so far. That's got to
And
feel.
it sounds tacky. It's like, oh, we got to believe in each other, but you
Yeah.
can feel the difference when like, okay, she really does trust me on the ice, and I trust her that like every shift she's out there, like she's got it.
Mm.
Like that's and when that is like a train effect, that's where it's like, okay, we really got something here. But if you get one little link that's like, I don't think she should be out there. Well, then we got an issue, you know? And I think that with that experience, want to continue to carry that out, like that experience again, another experience of carrying it throughout to my camps or whatever I end up doing in my long-term career, and really building that train of feeling of purpose and trust is huge.
Yeah, I love that. And as we look to wind down our incredible conversation, this has been so much fun. The last segment is the aforementioned 20 questions. Now, these aren't actually 20 questions, although sometimes I have follow-up questions, so it kind of gets it will sometimes inch its way towards 20 questions, but
plus or minus.
Yeah, it might be plus. So but this is a scientifically proven test that's put together by the crack team here at the Rinkside Rundown podcast, and I always say it's my dog and I. He works harder than I do. So
what kind of dog?
He's a dachshund Chihuahua. So he's got a lot of spunk to him. So even in his old age, he's got a lot of spunk. He works really hard on these. So these are questions that we've put together to help, and again, they kind of go all over the place. There's some super fun and random, others are really insightful, hopefully, and it's just a great way to further connect with and understand the one and only Amanda Pelkey. You ready to take this test?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. I feel like I might already know the answer to this first question, but I'm still gonna throw it out there. What are you most?
Is this like rapid fire answers?
Oh no! You can take as long as you want. Yeah. It's not like a yes or no.
Be like one word. Okay,
no.
Okay, I'm ready.
No, you can share as much or as little as you'd like. If you'd like one word or 3 paragraphs, that's totally fine. What are you most proud of from this past season?
I would say most proud of the support and awareness that we brought to our sport.
Ooh. Okay. Starting off with a strong answer. I like that. Again, like I said, this is going to be all over the place. So next question is, what is your go-to pregame meal?
Like to keep it simple, so nothing too heavy. Any sort of protein that my friend who's a nutritionist is going to love this. Any sort of protein, carb, or color or veggie. I'm not like a picky eater, so whatever I can put together a few hours before the game that doesn't make me too heavy, and I'll eat it. I'm not picky.
All right. Yeah, like you said.
I have no superstition there, but protein, carb, color, and I'm good to go.
Okay. Yeah, she's going to be really proud of you. Yeah, you passed the test. During the season, and this is kind of a fun question where it's like during the season, obviously you got to get hyped up before the game. You got to get ready for the game. Who owned the dressing room music and who played it and what was played most often? Sorry.
That's great. We had an accumulation of people. I think Bracken was on it sometimes. Jamie Lee Rattray was on it as well. And then in terms of like energy before a game, we had someone come on our team, Kelly Babstock, towards the end of the season. She's just a ball of energy, super fun. I played with her before. She brings energy. She brings the heat for sure. And then in terms of music, always a mixture of things. But then I think it felt as though when we started having the success and the success was rolling in, it was the same song. So you kind of notice like, certain cues and moments, specific songs would come on and, it was go time.
Okay, could you maybe just share a couple of those tracks?
Probably not, because I'm terrible at knowing the name
Okay,
of the songs.
that's
I'm not
fair.
trying to keep a secret. I don't know the names. And I'm
That's
not
okay.
gonna sing for you either
No, okay.
or
Well,
rap.
that was gonna be my. Those were
But
gonna be
like
my.
a mixture of everything. But like towards like when the game was about to begin, it was always a certain couple songs,
Okay.
just like hyped up ones. Yeah.
So I'm excited to, based off of that answer and how you ended that answer, I'm excited to find out if you'll be able to answer this next question, which is if you could listen to only one song for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I always say this caveat being, it doesn't need to be on all the time, but it just needs to be, you're like, you know what? I could go for a song right now. It has to be this song. And I'll give you, like, if you're not like
God.
one song I can't pick, I'll give you, let's do 3. I could give you one of 3.
I mean, Love on Top, Beyonce is just an all around
Oh yeah, okay, that's a good one.
banger and positive vibes.
All right, let's go with that one. That was
Yeah.
yeah, I like that one.
It's just the first one that came to my mind because it was in my head. But I like that answer.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. You know, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to connect with a player in the off season. And I always say it's never the off season because you're always training, you're always doing stuff, camps, all these sorts of things. But what does an off season look like for you? Maybe away from the ice, but just kind of what does it look like for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, things got it's a little kind of up in the air. Things get a little, I guess, not messed up, but when our season shifted. But typically, like, let's say, for instance, if we have camp mid-November, I would anticipate people probably started training like a month ago in the summer. I was running my camps, and I'm in a space where I'm trying to decide what my future looks like next year. But a typical off season would be usually take about 3 weeks. I personally usually take about 3 weeks or a month completely off, and then just get right back into it right away. I'm not huge on like feeling the need to skate a ton during the off season. I think just really focusing in on nutrition and getting back into that kind of preseason go time type of shape, and staying healthy are the priorities. And everyone's off season might look a little different in terms of where they train, who they train with, what their needs are. Is it injury based training or is it strength based training? So that's usually what mine would look like.
Okay, fair. And I have 2 last questions for you. Hopefully no follow-ups because I've already asked you too many. What is something that remains on your bucket list? And that can be both, but that could be either personally or professionally. There's no
remains on my bucket list.
And it can be something as simple as like I want to travel to this country or something like that as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of what I've been thinking about lately is my wife and I do travel quite a bit, but I think it would be fun to do like a planned out destination of like certain locations and do like a van trip.
Ooh, I like
like
that.
a nice camper van. And just yeah, I love being outside. Like, take me to a place that has a fire and near water, and you're hanging out by a fire with friends. Like, that's my go-to. So bucket list, I think, like, feel out that van life for a little bit would be really like freeing. It'd be fun.
Yep. You're preaching to the choir. I've always wanted to do van life, so I feel you on that one.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I think it's just like it's so minimalistic, and I don't know, it seems fun. Like right now we have all of our stuff in a storage unit, and it's actually pretty nice because we're in between leases. So it's kind of like, hey, you have a suitcase, and I miss my workout stuff, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's nice to just kind of go minimal, right? So I love that.
It is.
Um,
It's hard, but it is
yeah,
nice.
it's definitely an adjustment, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So you kind of answered my next question, so I'm going to skip to my, for real, the last question that I'll ask. I
Okay.
want to know, and I'm sure everyone wants to know, what's something that motivates or inspires you?
Hmm. Probably, well, the first thing that comes to mind because the Olympics are on, like when you see inspiring stories that include like the families and the success that they have, that makes me want to like I don't run long distance, but I'm like I want to go run just for even 30 minutes and it's a success for me. Um so I think a lot of people's a lot stories. I think just hearing success stories and even challenging stories too, from athletes or non-athletes is what I know that's kind of like a blah answer, but
No,
I
it
think that's like what gets the emotions going for
I
sure.
think I think it may feel like a blah answer only because it's not one that we think about enough, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like the stories really are what make, especially
Yeah.
sports, so incredible, right? It's all about the stories. The results are great, but the results are made so much better when there's a great story there and an inspiring story. Even if, like you said, even if that story means that now you're getting up and you're going to run 30 minutes, like
Yeah, no,
that's
and I think like the cherry on top to that too of that question, another answer is like I'm gonna be a mom in a month, which is crazy. Yeah, my wife is due in a month, and I think what inspires and motivates me is like even the opportunity to like bring a child up is pretty cool. So, whether if that's I'm playing next year, it's like pretty cool to think about bringing him up in that atmosphere, around teammates. And I know he's going to be way too young to even know what's going on, but being able to like look back on that with him and just bring up like a good human is pretty inspiring and motivating. So that's what I'm most looking forward to.
all right. And I think that's a
Yeah.
perfect place to end. That
Yeah.
was a profoundly good answer and not one, again, it's that's the third time I think you've given me chills with your answers. They're profound, they're great. So thank you, Amanda, so much for taking time out of your busy off season to hang out with me today. This has been amazing. It's been so much fun, and I cannot thank you enough for joining me today.
My pleasure. Great questions. That was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, the
Hmm.
crack team here at the Rinkside Rundown podcast, we don't mess around. So, and
That's great.
there you have it, folks. For Amanda Pelkey, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.
Cheers.